Julia, have you ever woken up in a bed full of milk duds?
No, but there's still time, Nicole, before Halloween.
Yeah.
It's episode 4 of Disengaging, recapping our favorite parts of season 3 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I'm Julia Ritchie, a journalist in Nashville, home of one of the Dierks Bentley Whiskey Rows.
I'm Nicole Nixon, a journalist in Sacramento, which is home to really bad sports teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Kings. So let's get to it. We open on night 3 in Scottsdale, and I was thinking 3 nights in Scottsdale sounds like a Jordan Peele movie, like a horror movie where it's like, because Scottsdale's like super white, right? It's like a very like,
It's like Get Out, but like in the West.
yes, exactly. So 3 nights in Scottsdale, terrifying. The weather is terrible, inexplicably. And there's not a lot of activity. I want to bring up, because this got cut from our last episode, that I do believe that the Real Housewives universe takes place inside a convalescence nursing home kind of center, because everything takes place between group dinners and group communal meals.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the things that they do together during the day, like the daytime activities, are things like, pedal taverns and adult puzzles. And today's episode was a twerking class with someone named Crystal Pussy. So it's like a really weird kind of like adult nursing home.
Yeah. And they need those activities to like break the tension. But when you're reined in, there's not a lot of things to do to break that tension. So they all just sit around tables with or without food and just like yell at each other. So much fun.
And we did want to bring up food this episode. I find myself starving when I'm watching this show. Like, all I want to do is like shove like milk duds and like Taco Bell and like things I never normally eat, like Pringles. Like, I'm like, where can I get a can of Pringles? Like,
I love
I don't
Pringles.
know what it is about the show. It's like junk food for my brain, makes me want to eat junk food.
I feel that. I don't even like Diet Coke, and every time Lisa's like, can I get a Diet Coke? I'm like, a Diet Coke? Maybe I could go for that right now, even though I don't even like it.
So in this episode, Lisa is holding a Diet Coke can as she's about to go to bed after they've accused her of trading sexual favors for jazz tickets. And then later we have the milk duds in bed Heather scene, which is hilarious, like classic Heather moment. And then Lisa says that she slept really well after eating a burrito and Kit Kats.
Relatable.
And then Heather makes this breakfast spread
At like 2 p.m. Though I noticed that her hash browns were like not even crispy, like not even brown, how they're supposed to be. And I was kind of disappointed.
They're like, they looked really wet
Mushy.
in a bad way. Yeah, mushy is the word. And I said, don't Utahns know how to make potatoes crispy? Isn't that the one thing you guys are like known for, crispy potatoes? Am I
should be.
making
That
this
should
up?
be the case. Nope, you're right.
I
Love a
I
good
lived
funeral
in
potato.
Salt
I
Lake
can make
for
you
3
funeral
years.
potatoes at some time next time we get together if you'd like, because
Yeah,
even I know how to do that.
I don't think I ever had funeral potatoes when I lived in Salt Lake, and I feel like
Damn.
it was a missed opportunity for me.
I've only made them a couple times, so my mom's recipe is 100.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, I want to try your mom's funeral potatoes. I feel like if we don't talk about funeral potatoes at one point on this podcast, are we even talking about Real Housewives of Salt Lake City? The major drama of this episode takes place not between Lisa and all of her accusers, or Jen and all of her accusers, but between Heather and Whitney. So should we talk about why things take a turn? Obviously, like there are some serious things going on for Whitney that we mentioned. We don't want to go too far into. But beyond that, it's just like Heather and Whitney have been very close on this show, and now whether this is real or not, they seem to have taken sort of a a hard left turn in their relationship where
Yeah.
I guess Heather is less sympathetic to Whitney and what Whitney's going through, but also Whitney is not taking total responsibility for some of the things that she says when she's drinking a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's really weird and confusing to watch because I'm just like, why is Whitney clamped onto this like thing that really doesn't matter? It's just a rumor, and Heather's denying it, and Lisa's denying it. And so why can't you just be like, whatever, and drop it? And if it really bothers you, like, go back to Angie. But like, she's letting it ruin her trip, and she's like letting it bring up all this like trauma that she's processing internally, and just like, I guess, scapegoating it
so
onto
it's like
this.
she's getting it, all of her signals are getting crossed. So like Meredith, like I think you said this before, but Meredith has clearly gone to therapy. And so there's this one point later in the episode when they're at Derek's Bentley with his Whiskey Row. Please sponsor us, Derek's. Where she like leans over to Whitney and is like, what you're feeling is valid, but you have to express that what you're feeling are just feelings, and whether or not she's basically like telling Whitney how to tell Heather what's wrong. And it was like I was like, man, Meredith is like the MVP of this show this season.
It's crazy after all the drama. Although we thought in the first couple episodes Meredith would be like the Ice Queen villain, but she really is like, she takes care of everybody, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. I also think she seems like she's enjoying herself a lot more this season, just because she's not at the center of a rumor as all the other ones are now. So maybe that's the best place to be in the Real Housewives like orbit, is like kind of on the periphery of drama, looking in.
Just having a good time.
What the didn't realize it because I just walked through it last night. I fell asleep in a pile of milk duds, and that was how that night ended.
So we need to talk about Jen and her trial, because she departs early from Scottsdale to go to do a mock trial. And I have a confession. I was in mock trial in high school.
Oh, Bill.
So you know what mock trial is? Obviously, it's just like you pretend to be lawyers and witnesses, and you compete against other high schools. It's like debate team. It's super nerdy.
I wish my high school did that.
We got our asses whooped by this one high school that was so good. But I got an award for best witness because I played a psychiatrist who was like diagnosing like I think someone's like alcoholism as like a contributing factor to like a car accident or whatever our fake trial was. Anyways, Jen is going to go do the same thing in New York to try and get her story straight.
Well, it apparently didn't go so well for her because she was like got up and stormed out twice. She's said a couple times with her lawyers. So
I think one of the best lines, which I hope we can play, is that her attorney told her not to get any more Botox before her trial.
I'm like, what? She goes, when we were talking earlier, you were talking about something very emotional and you're crying, but your face isn't moving. I need your face to move.
Can you think of a more like iconic Real Housewives line? Like, my trial lawyer told me not to get any more Botox so that I'm more sympathetic.
Yeah, so after Jen leaves, we get the first real group hug that I think I've seen on this show.
A very tender moment.
Yeah.
Like, Meredith, the camera like almost missed it, but like clocked Meredith and Lisa having this very like tight touching. It looked like they were putting some shit behind them. And then Meredith had a group hug with Heather and Whitney, which seemed a little awkward given the night before, but still very touching.
Moments like that because it shows you like there are some real things in here, and I think the fact that they are so supportive of Jen is actually kind of sweet, even though we are probably going to see Jen do some time for her financial crimes, which we'll also get to in a minute. But let's talk about Whiskey Row.
Yeah, okay. I did not know what Whiskey Row is, and apparently it's a big deal. So can you please enlighten me about Whiskey Row?
This is the journalist in me. I went down this like rabbit hole mid-episode where I was like, I know that there's a Dierks Bentley is a country music artist, and his big heyday was kind of like the late aughts with like songs like Drunk on a Plane and Woman Amen and all these like country music kind of like classic country songs. Anyways, so he opened this bar in Scottsdale.
Top tier.
Yeah, he opened the bar in Scottsdale, which is like one of those 3-story like mega bars. And then he opened like 3 more, including one on Broadway in Nashville, which is like the big party strip where they have all the pedal taverns and stuff. Anyways, the state just fined Whiskey Row in Nashville like $30,000 because they hired unlicensed bouncers at the door, and they stabbed a guy to death.
To death?
Yeah, like the bouncers at Whiskey Row killed a guy.
Oh my God.
And then they got in trouble because they weren't like supposed to be doing that. You shouldn't kill anyone. Let's make that clear.
Especially to get into a bar.
Disengaging podcast does not condone any bar fights,
bouncer stabbings,
bar deaths, or anything like. Anyways, so when they showed up at Whiskey Row in Scottsdale, I had a moment where I was like, "Ooh," but then it looked very empty and not rowdy at all. So apparently a little bit different scene at the Whiskey Row in Scottsdale versus Nashville.
I didn't know bouncers had to be licensed, and that is a FOIA request that I would love to make someday.
Yeah, see? Great story ideas from the Real Housewives. So they're very hangry, we've decided, because they start getting in a fight before the appetizers even get to the table.
Whitney and Heather start kind of going at it, and Whitney's like, I'm going through so much trauma and you haven't supported me, which is, I will say, true. At least on camera, we have not seen Heather like embrace Whitney and be supportive in any way, right?
I mean,
Did I miss that?
I don't think she has been as sympathetic as the other women when Whitney started opening up about what she was going through. And so but they
didn't have a lot of time given, like, all the stuff going on.
Also,
so it quickly devolved. So it is a little surprising to me that they didn't like have a heart-to-heart that night or anything like that. And then again, like, there's a lot going on in this house.
Do you think is Heather, because she's got the oldest sister and she got cast out from her family and she's kind of like had to make it on her own since her divorce, like, do you think she's just a little like hardened by life in a way that Whitney is like clearly not? And so there's this like, you need to suck it up, buttercup sort of vibe coming from Heather about like not making yourself the center of the universe. And I'm like, ugh, we have to talk about this again. But obviously, like, what Whitney's going through is serious and should be like, people should be considerate of that.
You might be right. I mean, and I think if that is the case, it showed at the Whiskey Row when, Heather did say some pretty insensitive things, and even Lisa was like, "Oh, Heather was not being
whoa
sensitive in that moment." But
well, yeah, when Heather's like, "What? You didn't like that I didn't support you for when you said that Lisa was giving blowjobs for courtside tickets?" And Lisa's like, sitting there like, "Hello, I'm sitting here. I can cry too, but not move my face because I also have Botox in it."
It's all so messy. And then they were hangry because they quickly all shut up and started shoveling food the second their food arrived, which all very, very relatable.
I have so been there. Let me ask you about this expression that Heather drops on Whitney when she's like telling her basically like just stop. She says, "You're up a river with no paddle." Is that a Utah expression?
I don't recall ever hearing that, but it does sound like something like every one of my grandpas would say. So, yes.
It does have an old-timey, old prospector, old, like, we're going to find silver in the Comstock lode kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem very Utah. But I don't know. If anybody else has heard this, Utah or not, please let us know.
Yeah, send us your Utah expressions and your funeral potato recipes.
No, don't send us. We don't need your funeral potato recipe.
Yeah, apparently hers is perfect. we end this episode with the ladies in these like Orange is the New Black PJ sets discussing Jin's upcoming trial, which we later learn has been moved to July. But in this episode, it's literally a month away. And we get an amazing sort of like analysis by Meredith.
I love it. Oh, I was so there for that. Meredith just schooling everyone. And it made me think of when all of this was first going down and they were on the bus and Meredith was not there, but Whitney was. And some of the women were surprised about how much Whitney knew about like legal processes. But
she knew a lot about direct marketing because I believe some of her own
probably
businesses
done it in the past.
Yeah.
But this time, Meredith was here to drop the knowledge, and Whitney was the one asking her questions. And apparently, Meredith went to law school.
Right.
I didn't know that.
That was in season 1, I think. I think they actually brought that up, is that Meredith used to be a lawyer, at least went to law school. And she is serving, like, Law and Order, ching ching, like that little, like. And I was like, we really need to give Meredith her own courtroom spinoff where she, like, judges. Like,
I would
Judge
see
Judy
Judge
style.
Meredith.
Yeah.
She should take over for Judge Judy.
I think so. I think she's got my favorite part was when they're like, Stu would never turn on her. And then they do all these flashbacks to Jin's assistant Stu and all the times they shared together. And then Meredith's like, oh no, honey, he's definitely not on her side anymore.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was watching those flashbacks and like kind of cringing. But then I remembered this moment's always stuck out to me. I think in season 1 when she was like snowshoeing with Stu, and she like, this is Jen, was like talking about how nice of a person she is because she employs him basically, and so his family has food to eat. Like she was like holding the fact that she employs him and like pays him like over his head in a very weird way. I don't think she meant it to be manipulative, but it sounded like that. It always grossed me out. It's all clearly stuck with me. So yes, of course he's gonna turn on her.
I have no opinion on Stu, and especially now that he's facing jail time. Like I genuinely like don't have any like ill will toward the man. But yeah, I was like, this relationship is kind of unusual. And I think it's a good segue to the BravoCon drama. So BravoCon was going on this week, which, if we could get media passes next year, Nicole, like, I feel like,
oh my God.
So we need everyone that's listening right now to like rate and subscribe and like, because we got to get some media passes to BravoCon next year.
Yes.
But one of the major dramas at BravoCon this year, so that's where they have all of the franchises kind of convene, and Andy Cohen does sort of like watch what happens live with all of these women. Is Jen Shah was not invited apparently, but she showed up to one of the after parties, and then when someone called her out on it, she tweeted, I am the party, I'm the life of the party. And like, of course I was invited, and like all you guys spreading rumors. But then Andy Cohen, I think, confirmed that after she pled guilty, because now we know that she has switched her plea to guilty, that ended her contract with Bravo.
Is that real?
That's what I read, but I don't do any fact checking for this show, so that's an important thing. That's an important disclosure I should make.
mean, look, if we could truly fact check by getting a copy of like their contracts, that would be like, just
send us your NDAs.
Seriously. That's crazy though.
It was very bizarre because then this like fight broke out in one of the Instagrams of the Bravo like fan accounts over whether it was a double standard to give Jen the boot and not Teresa Giudice, who also pled guilty for aiding her husband and signing some of those like fake. He filed for bankruptcy in the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and it was fraudulent, and she co-signed it.
Is she white?
Yes.
Okay.
And they both went to jail. And so then the reason people said that it was different, which I hate when people do this, where they like try to like parse who's the real innocent, is that Teresa didn't know what she was doing. She didn't perpetrate the crime. It was her husband. So it was just like one of those like really dumb like debates about like Teresa is way different than what Jen did by scamming people. And I'm like, I'm not saying, I just think when you start making those types of like arguments. It's just no one wins.
Very weird of Bravo to be like the moral judge of like which crime is less severe than another.
But I can't imagine them kicking her off the show. And this is me being a Jen apologist again. She kind of is like the most, like, she brings the fun. She brings the drama. Like, she
brings the party drama. She brings, like, the interpersonal drama. Now she brings the legal drama. She brings the fabulous outfits. Like, love or hate Jen, she is a very integral part of the Salt Lake City franchise. And I think it would suffer if she wasn't involved in it.
I see it as a similar arc with, like, they have to cast her out right now, and maybe they should, because we shouldn't be condoning any crime on any show. But like Teresa, she'll have her like redemption arc maybe. Who knows though? That's wildly speculative.
I mean, look, I said it before, but she has a lot of restitution to pay, and she's got to get that money somehow.
And we've got to get BravoCon passes next year. So,
yes.
Next week, we're going to find out what Angie Harrington did to Lisa besides accuse her of stealing her caterer in season 2. And a lot more.
And spreading a rumor about blowies for jazz tickets.
Exactly. So it's going to be good. This episode of Disengaging is produced by me, Julia Ritchie, in Nashville, Tennessee.
And me, Nicole Nixon, in Sacramento, California.
Thank you for listening. We will be back next week.
And do not forget to find us and rate us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts, and help us build our following so that we can get those BravoCon media passes next year.
BravoCon 2023.
Meredith did a group hug with Lisa and Whitney, and then Jesus.
I know.
And then Meredith had
You're like Whitney
turning
over
into
here.
Whitney. Yeah. I can't keep my details straight.